Part 1. Inherited Blooms. Charlotte Beaumont stood behind the counter of Magnolia's garden, staring at the chaos of Saturday morning orders scattered across her great-aunt's vintage workspace. 6 months since inheriting the flower shop, and she still felt like an imposter among the ribbons and rose stems. "I need something cheerful for a hospital visit," said Mrs. Henderson, the third customer in 10 minutes, with a request that required more intuition than Charlotte possessed. "Of course," Charlotte replied, though her museum curator training had never covered translating emotions into floral arrangements. She selected yellow daisies and white roses, hoping cheerful meant bright colors rather than sophisticated composition. As Mrs. Henderson left with her bouquet, Charlotte noticed a tall man examining the white roses near the front window. He moved with academic precision, studying each stem like he was evaluating historical artifacts. Wire-rimmed glasses caught the morning light as he selected 6 perfect blooms. "Just these, please," he said, approaching the counter with quiet formality. Charlotte wrapped the roses in simple brown paper, noting the care with which he handled them. "They're beautiful roses. Special occasion?" "Weekly tradition," he replied, his voice carrying undertones of something deeper than routine. "Thank you." After he left, Charlotte found herself wondering about the story behind his careful selection. She arranged the remaining white roses in a clear vase, unconsciously applying the principles of line and balance she'd learned in art history. The composition pleased her in ways that felt both familiar and new. The bell above the door chimed again, and Charlotte pushed thoughts of the mysterious customer aside. Magnolia's garden needed her attention, even if she wasn't sure she deserved the legacy her great-aunt had entrusted to her care. Part 2. Sunday Traditions. Sunday morning brought Savannah's characteristic quiet, broken only by church bells and the distant sound of tour carriages on cobblestone streets. Charlotte was arranging a window display when she spotted the same man from yesterday walking past the shop, carrying his white roses. Curiosity overcame her usual reserve. She locked the shop and followed at a respectful distance, drawn by something in his purposeful stride that suggested ritual rather than mere errand. He turned into Bonaventure Cemetery, where ancient oaks draped with Spanish moss created cathedral spaces between elaborate headstones. Charlotte hung back near the entrance, watching him approach a well-tended gravesite. He placed the roses against a simple marker, then stood in quiet conversation with someone who could no longer answer. She loved flowers. Charlotte startled, realizing he'd noticed her presence. Heat rose in her cheeks as she approached, feeling caught in an intrusion. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't mean to interrupt something private." "It's all right." He removed his glasses, cleaning them with the kind of nervous precision that suggested emotion held carefully in check. "I'm James Whitmore. You're the new owner of Magnolia's garden." "Charlotte Beaumont. And I'm not really new anymore, though I still feel like I'm playing dress-up in someone else's life." James's smile held understanding. "I know that feeling. I moved back to Savannah 3 years ago to care for my mother. After she died last year, I kept coming here every Sunday. Couldn't seem to stop." Charlotte studied the grave marker, noting the fresh earth and the way James had arranged the roses with museum-quality attention to detail. She was lucky to have someone who remembers her so faithfully. "I wasn't here enough when she was alive. Graduate school, then the tenure track at different universities. I thought there would be more time." James's voice carried the weight of academic precision applied to personal regret. The roses were her favorite. Simple, classic, nothing too elaborate. "Sometimes simple is perfect," Charlotte said gently. "My great-aunt left me her flower shop, and I keep thinking I should understand what she saw in me that made her believe I could continue her work. Maybe understanding comes through doing, not the other way around." They walked back toward town together, their conversation flowing naturally from flowers to family to the challenge of honoring the past while building something new. When they reached Magnolia's garden, Charlotte surprised herself by inviting James inside. "Would you like some coffee? I was going to work on arrangements for tomorrow, and I'd appreciate the company. James accepted, settling into the chair near the workbench where he could watch Charlotte move among the flowers. For the first time since his mother's death, Sunday afternoon felt like possibility rather than penance. Part 3. Creative Variations. The following Saturday, Charlotte prepared for James's visit with unusual care. Based on their cemetery conversation, she'd learned that his mother had loved baby's breath for its delicate beauty and symbolic meaning of everlasting love. This week, she'd tucked a few stems among the white roses. When James arrived at his usual time, his surprise was immediate. He studied the modified arrangement with the same scholarly attention he'd probably given historical documents. "Baby's breath," he said quietly. "Your mother's second favorite, according to what you told me. I thought..." Charlotte hesitated, suddenly uncertain about her artistic interpretation. "I thought variation might honor memory differently than repetition, but if you prefer the usual arrangement..." "No," James interrupted, his voice warm with something Charlotte hadn't heard before. "This is beautiful." She would have loved the thoughtfulness. He lingered at the counter, watching Charlotte work on other arrangements. Her hands moved with growing confidence among the stems and ribbons, creating compositions that seemed to capture something essential about each flower's character. "You're finding your rhythm," James observed. "The work suits you. I'm beginning to think my aunt knew something I didn't. Museum curation and floral design both require understanding how individual elements create meaning when combined thoughtfully." "Like historical research," James agreed. "You gather fragments and arrange them until they tell a coherent story." Their conversation deepened as Charlotte worked, James sharing memories of his mother's small garden behind their family home. She'd grown gardenias and jasmine alongside practical herbs, creating spaces that were both beautiful and useful. "She had strong opinions about flowers," James said, laughing at some private memory. "Roses were elegant, but gardenias were romantic. Baby's breath was essential, but never sufficient alone. She could read people's personalities through their garden choices." "What would she have thought about mine?" Charlotte asked, gesturing around the shop filled with her aunt's collected treasures and her own emerging aesthetic. James studied the space with new attention. The way Charlotte had arranged seasonal blooms, the vintage containers mixed with modern elements, the subtle signs of someone learning to trust her artistic instincts. "She would have recognized a kindred spirit," he said finally. "Someone who understands that beauty serves a purpose beyond decoration." When James left with his thoughtfully modified arrangement, Charlotte felt something shift in her understanding of both her work and the quiet professor who had become part of her weekly routine. Creating beauty for someone who appreciated its deeper meaning felt like discovering the true purpose of her unexpected inheritance. Part 4. Garden Memories. James arrived on Tuesday evening carrying a small cardboard box and wearing the expression of someone who'd made an important decision. Charlotte was closing the shop, but she unlocked the door when she saw him through the window. "I brought something to show you," he said, setting the box on her workbench. "If you have time." Inside, Charlotte found carefully preserved photographs of a modest backyard garden. The images showed a woman with James's eyes and gentle smile tending neat rows of flowers and herbs. In several pictures, she posed proudly beside elaborate arrangements that showcased both formal roses and wildflowers gathered from the surrounding countryside. "She documented every season," James explained, his voice soft with memory. "Mother approached gardening like I approach research, methodically, but with genuine passion for the subject." Charlotte studied the photographs with curatorial attention, noting how James's mother had combined cultivated beauty with natural elements. The arrangements showed sophisticated understanding of color, texture, and seasonal appropriateness. "She was an artist," Charlotte said. "These compositions show real skill and vision. She never thought of herself that way, just someone who loved making beautiful things that brought people joy." James pointed to a photo of his mother creating a large arrangement for what appeared to be a church altar. Mother's Day was always her biggest production. She'd spent weeks planning arrangements for the entire sanctuary. "Would you like me to create something in her style?" Charlotte asked gently. "A memorial arrangement that captures her approach to combining formal and natural elements?" James's expression showed surprise and gratitude in equal measure. "You would do that?" "I'd be honored. Your mother clearly understood something essential about flowers that I'm still learning." They spent the next hour studying the photographs together, James sharing stories about his mother's gardening philosophy, while Charlotte took notes about color preferences, seasonal combinations, and the way formal roses were balanced with gathered wildflowers and herbs. She believed flowers should tell stories, James said, watching Charlotte sketch ideas for the memorial arrangement. Every bouquet she created had meaning beyond just looking pretty. "What story would you like this arrangement to tell?" James considered the question with academic seriousness. That love persists beyond loss, that beauty can honor memory without being trapped by it, that some traditions are worth continuing even when the original teacher is gone. Charlotte looked up from her sketching, meeting James's eyes directly. "Those are beautiful stories. I think we can tell them together." When James left that evening, both understood that their collaboration had moved beyond customer service into something more personal and meaningful. Charlotte worked late into the night, planning an arrangement that would honor both James's mother and their growing connection. Part 5. Full Bloom. Mother's Day morning arrived with perfect spring weather, and Charlotte had been working since dawn on James's memorial arrangement. She'd combined white roses and baby's breath with gardenias, jasmine, and carefully chosen wildflowers, creating a composition that honored both formal beauty and natural abundance. When James arrived at the shop, his reaction was immediate and profound. He stood silently before the arrangement, his academic composure giving way to raw emotion as he recognized not just his mother's favorite flowers, but her distinctive approach to combining elegance with simplicity. "Charlotte," he whispered, "this is exactly what she would have created. How did you understand her vision so completely?" "I listened to your stories and studied her photographs, but mostly I let myself feel what you felt about her." Charlotte moved closer, drawn by the vulnerability in his expression. "Your love for her taught me how to honor her memory through flowers." James reached for Charlotte's hands, their fingers intertwining naturally among the blooms and ribbons scattered across the workbench. "I've been coming here for weeks, thinking I was buying flowers for my mother. But I think I was really looking for someone who could help me carry her memory into whatever comes next. And I thought I was learning floral design," Charlotte replied softly. "But I was really learning how to honor the past while building something new." Their first kiss happened surrounded by the flowers they'd chosen together, tasting of possibility and the courage required to love again after loss. When they separated, both recognized that something fundamental had shifted between them. Over the following weeks, their relationship deepened naturally. James continued his Sunday cemetery visits, but now Charlotte joined him, bringing seasonal arrangements that combined memorial reverence with celebratory beauty. Her artistic vision helped him see that honoring his mother's memory didn't require limiting himself to rigid routine, while his scholarly appreciation for continuity helped Charlotte understand that some traditions were worth preserving and adapting rather than abandoning. On a quiet evening in late May, as Charlotte arranged the week's final bouquet and James graded papers at the small table near the window, both felt the contentment of having found something neither had expected. When James looked up from his work to watch Charlotte's graceful movements among the flowers, and she caught his gaze with a smile that carried both peace and promise, they understood that the best love stories weren't about forgetting the past, but about finding someone who helped you carry it forward into a brighter future. "Your mother would have approved," Charlotte said, settling beside James as twilight painted Savannah's streets in golden light. "She would have loved you," James replied, pulling Charlotte closer, "and she would have been proud that her roses brought us together." Outside, the historic city settled into evening quiet, but inside Magnolia's garden, two people who had learned to tend both flowers and hearts with equal care made arrangements that would bloom long beyond any single season.